Sports Talk with Playeragent3. My next guest is a former NC State WolfPack point guard, one of the nation's top rising young black coaches, a North Carolina native, Mr. Justin Gainey. How you doing?
Man, all is well. All is well this way, man. Can't complain. It's just kind of ripping and running a little bit. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, man. I definitely appreciate you coming on the show, man. How's everybody doing with the COVID-19 pandemic going on?
Everybody's doing good. You know, it's a fluid situation. You know, there's no playbook for it. There's no playbook for it. And, you know, there's a lot of questions, and, you know, you don't always have all the answers that you would hope to have, and you kind of just, you know, you're flying and things could change one day to the next. You know, you have a plan, and then all of a sudden that plan gets knocked off, of course. But, you know, we have a great administration here that's kind of helping lead the way. And you know, Coach Wojciechowski has been really good with, you know, in leadership and leading us in the right direction on it. So it's definitely ever changing and fluid, but we're getting through it. Everybody's healthy, and we're in a good space. Okay.
All right. Cool. All right, man. Greensboro High Point. You know, you're from the Greensboro High Point area, right?
Right. I'm from High Point. Went to high school.
Okay, so talk about your high school journey, man. In terms of how did you end up at NC State?
Yeah, so from High Point, North Carolina, you know, grew up there playing basketball, playing at the parks. You know, it wasn't you know, like it is now, where you got all these different gyms and different workout guys. You know, you went to the park, you tried to get there first. If you lost, you might as well go home, because it was jam-packed, man. So, you know, that's where the competitive nature, the competitive fire and drive came from. But started at an early age, and played a little bit of everything, man. Played YMCA leagues, played AAU, was just really getting going then, so played AAU. But, you know, went to High Point Andrews to start out my high school career, and then I ended up transferring to Greensboro Day School over in Greensboro, and to play for the legendary coach, Coach Freddie Johnson over there. We had a really, really good team, especially my first year. I mean, we were loaded over there. Mm-hmm. And, you know, kind of went on, and the program had already been going. I thought our group really took it to another level, and then groups behind us took it even to a higher level, which is awesome to see. But, you know, out of there is where I started to kind of gain recruiting attention. And, you know, we played a national schedule. We played, you know, a lot of the top teams in the state, and we won a lot. You know, in my 3 years there, we won 2 state championships and lost in the finals my sophomore year. So really competitive. We won the Little Four 1 year I was there. But that's where I kind of got on the national recruiting scene, and kind of made my name a little bit.
Okay, so what was recruiting like for you actually in high school? Was it you always had somebody in your living room? You always had somebody on the phone? How was that for you?
Yeah, it was. Recruiters didn't have the access to players as we do now. You know, you have social media, you have the cell phone, you can text guys, you can constantly be in contact with them. Then there was no cell phone. There was no internet. I definitely didn't have an internet in my house. And so, you know, to talk to coaches, I had to be home, which I was home, because I would go to the park until 10, 11 at night, or you have to work through my high school coach or whatnot. And so, you know, recruiting there was, for me, it went a lot through my high school coach, and he would kind of keep me up to beat on who was reaching out in the different situations. But definitely different than it is now. Not as much access to, you know, to the prospect as back then as you do now. Mm-hmm.
So NC State, man, you solid player at NC State, man. Three year starter, man. You all ACC honors, man. You actually led the WolfPack to the ACC championship game while you were there as an 8th seed.
Yep.
Talk about that ACC experience, year in and year out, the premier conference in America. Talk about that whole experience playing in the ACC.
Yeah, it was, that was my freshman year when we went to the championship game, and it was something I'll never forget because, like a lot of freshmen, I had a rocky start. I got injured early. Wasn't playing a lot, wasn't playing as much as I thought I should. I was going through that deal. But we go into the last game of the regular season. We're playing at Wake Forest, Tim Duncan's last game, the whole nine, and this nip and tuck all the way to the end. And I get inserted into the game early first half and late in the second half and make a couple big plays that help propel us to a win on the road. CeCe Harrison hit a big-time three-point shot to win the game. Controversial, as you look back on the film now, his foot was on the line, but there was no replay, so I'll take it, man. And but with that, one of our guys got hurt, and it propelled me into the starting lineup. And so as we enter the ACC tournament, here I am, a freshman, starting point guard, and I went from a guy that didn't play a lot in my freshman year to I played 40 minutes for 4 games. So it was a total of 160 minutes, which is the ACC tournament record in that 1997 ACC tournament run that we had. And that kind of catapulted my career at NC State. But to say it got off to a great start, a smooth start, I'd be lying to you. And but the thing is, I was ready when my time was called, and I stepped up and I was excited for the opportunity. When people ask me, were you tired? I say, no. I didn't want to come out the game. I've been sitting so much that year, I was afraid to come out the game. It was kind of like being at the park. You lose and you go home.
Right. So your freshman year, man, take me back to that journey down the Cameron Indoor and that journey over to Chapel Hill as a freshman, man. How was that for you stepping foot in those two places?
Yeah, it was, both of those places are tough in their own sense to play in, great atmospheres, a lot of history, a lot of tradition, but it's a different feel in both arenas, and it was exciting. I didn't play a lot both of those games as a freshman, but I just remember walking in the gym and you're at Chapel Hill and you look up and you see all the uniforms in the rafters, and then you go into Cameron Indoor and you look up and you see all the national championship banners in the rafters, and I mean it was a great experience.
Right. Did you have that welcome to the ACC moment? And a lot of guys that come on the show that played in the ACC, I ask them the same question. Did you have that one moment where you was like, wow, I'm finally here? I don't know if anybody dunked on you or, anything could have happened.
Yeah, I had a couple of them. I would say my freshman year, we're playing at Duke and, the crowd's going crazy. They're on us pretty good. It's kind of late in the game. I'm still in. Again, I'm, just kind of finding my way. Somehow I come up with a steal, breakaway. I wasn't a dunker, a high-flying dunking guy. So, I come in. I don't think, I think I'm by myself. And Mike Chappelle, I don't know if you remember him. He's like a 6'8", 6'9", really long, athletic dude. Again, he was a freshman, hadn't been playing much. He's trying to cut his teeth too. And I slow up on the layup, and out of nowhere, man, this joker come, LeBron James, runs me down, throw it off the backboard, and the crowd goes crazy. And I just remember going back to the bench at the timeout, and my head coach telling me, Herb Sindak, man, welcome to the ACC. Welcome to the ACC. You don't slow down on a fast break. But that was my kind of welcome to the ACC moment.
Who would you say is the toughest guard that you competed against your whole time at NC State?
Golly, man, it was so many. Back then, The league was 9 teams. Every team was loaded. You know, I played against, you know, and a good friend, Terrell McIntyre. Like we played each other in high school. But you know, he was a tough cover, man. The guy had the ultimate green light. He was really tricky with the ball. He was left-handed. You know, he could do it either way, man. He could take you off the bounce, get you shoot. He could get to the rack. You know, he wasn't big, but man, he created separation with the step back. He was really good. Ed Cota in a different way. Yeah, you know, he wasn't the score first mentality guard, but if you didn't play him close, he would pick you apart with the pass. I mean, I've never seen a guy that could pass the ball as accurate off the dribble, on the move as he could, you know, and probably the best I've ever seen at throwing the lob. He has some good targets to throw it to. Yeah. But you know, he was really good. You know, Steve Francis was really good. You know, he was there for 1 year, but at his size, his athleticism, you know, doing what he did, and on both sides of the ball made him really, really tough to deal with. But I mean, there was a lot of, I mean, Donald Hand was good. Curtis Staples was good. Harold Dean was good. I mean, it was Kerry Thompson down at Florida State. I mean, every night you had your hands full, man. And right. That was what was great about the ACC back then. Yeah. There were no nights off.
Golden era. That was the golden era of the ACC. Well, one of the golden eras.
Yeah, and I'm a little biased because I went through it. You know, I always tell those guys, man, that was the tough. That's when it was real. You know, that's when it was real.
Right. So your time at NC State was up. Then you got an opportunity to play professionally for a couple of years. How was that experience for you playing across the water?
It was good. You know, it was something I'd always dreamed about doing was, you know, playing professionally. And, you know, as you're growing up, you don't look at it, you don't think like, you know, European basketball being professional. Your goal is the NBA. And so going into it, I probably didn't have the level of excitement as I probably should have, because, you know, everybody doesn't get to do it. But as I got acclimated, as I started playing games and realizing that, man, I'm getting paid to do something I love, it was an amazing experience. I was in 2 great places. I was in Klagenfurt, Austria. I was in Antibes, France, and 2 really good leagues, 2 competitive leagues. And I had a blast. It was great. And, you know, I would, anybody that I talk to, I would advise if you still have that bug, and you know, you do it. And now it's a little easier, I think, because the internet is better, the communication is better. You can stay in touch with things that are going on across the world a little bit better. When I was coming through, the internet was just kind of getting going, but it was really expensive and it was really tough to do, and it made that transition tougher. But all in all, it was a great experience.
Now you only played a couple of years in Europe. Now, do you attribute that to? Did you think it was time to do something else, or did you just, you know, you fell out of love with basketball?
No, I never fell out of love with basketball. I had my first son after. So my wife was pregnant with him going into my second season. And then after the season, you know, he was born that summer. And I felt like I needed to be there for him. I didn't feel like it was best to pick my family up and everybody move with us, move over there. And so I wanted to be with him. You know, I grew up with my dad in the household. He was always there. He would make breakfast for me. He was working me out. He was doing all of that. And I felt like I owed that experience to my son. And so I made the decision. To put that on halt and focus on my family and find something different, but within the game of basketball. And that kind of led me into different avenues. I ended up coaching middle school, coaching high school, running some basketball camps. working guys out. I was just doing a little bit of everything, but I was still involved in ball. And it didn't give me the same rush, but for me to be able to still be involved with the game, it satisfied me enough.
Now, in terms of that coaching, the coaching piece, do you feel like that was a natural progression, or you were in the right place at the right time?
I think it was, because initially I told myself I didn't want to coach. I can remember being on the bus and my assistant coach, John Gross, who's now the head coach at Akron, saying, "Hey, JG, man, you ought to think about coaching." I'm like, "Coach, I'll never coach. I don't have the patience to put up with certain things, and like I couldn't even deal with myself, and so I didn't think I would coach. And once I finished playing, I found myself slowly like just doing things with basketball, whether it was working with my kids, whether it was coaching high school, middle school, working guys out. And, during that time also, I started working in administration at NC State. And I did like kind of an internship within the athletic department. And that kept me in athletics. I was kind of close to basketball, but, I was doing that, got my master's degree. And then when Sidney Lowe got the head coaching job, Herb Sendek had left and went to Arizona State. Sidney came in. He offered me a position on his staff in an administrative role. And that was kind of my break into the basketball side of things. But I wasn't really trying to get into college basketball. I was always around it, always working with guys, always around ball. But it wasn't like I want to be a college coach. I just wanted to teach the game. I just wanted to be around these young guys and kind of and tell them my experiences and where I went wrong and where I did good, and like so they could use that and not make the same mistakes that I did.
Now, if you look at your resume, man, you definitely put in the work, man. You got NC State, you got Marquette, you have Arizona, Santa Clara, Elon, Appalachian State, man. Take me through that journey of being on the bench at all of these schools and soaking up that knowledge from so many great coaches.
Yeah, it's been a great journey, and I'm lucky in the sense that I've had a chance to work with some really good coaches, but even better men, even better people. And you hear the horror stories from, if you're in this business long enough, from different assistant coaches, like, man, I hated working for this dude. I hated this situation. And I've been fortunate enough to be around some really good people. And each stop was different. Each stop I learned something new that I was able to add to my overall philosophy, and it helped develop me. Each level was different. Appalachian State is a lot different than Marquette and a lot different than Arizona and Santa Clara. But what I think it's allowed me to do is, it's prepared me to make that next jump. So when it is time for me to hopefully one day run my own program, wherever it is, whatever level it is, I've already kind of been through it and been there. But the journey was fun. It's been fun, and I'm still on that ride. I couldn't have done it without my wife, who is, she runs the family. She's the backbone, and she gives me the okay to make all those moves because, I'm North Carolina born and bred, man. High Point, all my family's there, but we picked up and moved, man. We moved from North Carolina to Wisconsin to California to Arizona. Now we're back, so we just kind of been moving and bouncing around, and she made all of that possible. She made it, smooth for my kids as well. But it's been a fun journey. I've learned a lot on that journey, a lot from different places, and have worked for some guys that are big time coaches.
Mm-hmm. Now, being a point guard, a former point guard at NC State, and playing for Herb Sendek, do you think that prepared you for this journey?
I do, and I'll take it even a step further. My dad was my first coach. He was the guy that gave me confidence. It was, he threw me in the fire really young. And so every coach I've been with, I've taken something from. And, you know, from my dad to, you know, building confidence, to Coach Johnson, to just being able to relate with players, to Coach Sendek, to his detail, like every step of the way, it's helped me grow and it's helped me become the coach that I am today. And look, some of the things you take are good, and then some of the things you take, man, I would do that different. But every experience has helped. But yeah, to answer your question, you know, playing for Coach Sendek and the guys that were on his bench that were assistants at the time, learned a lot from them too. So, you know, Coach Sendek was the head coach. Sean Miller was the assistant coach. John Gross was an assistant coach. And John has been at, he was at Ohio University. He was at Illinois. Now he's at Akron, big time coach. Larry Harris, who is, you know, I thought he was one of the best recruiters, the best communicators, one of the best relatable coaches that I've been around. I mean, I still talk to him to this day, but he's the big dog, you know, he's the big dog. But, you know, Larry Harris was on that staff. And then, you know, Mark Phelps, he was our director of basketball operations. So we had a really great staff that I was able to learn from in every conversation that I had with those guys.
Mm-hmm. What do you think has been your toughest challenge as a coach?
Man, that's a great question. You know, what I would say is the time we're living in now. Mm-hmm. I think this is the biggest challenge that we've had to face. And you know, at the end of the day, it's basketball. And, mm-hmm. and you're going to win some games, you're going to lose some games, you know. And so some of the stuff we're dealing with now, as you look at the COVID-19, and you just don't know. You don't know what to tell your guys, and because it is a virus that you could have and you don't know it, you know, right. and it's just so many unknowns, and our leadership at the very top don't really have a great feel for it. So it's really tough for that. And then you look at what's going on in society now, you know, which kind of came to a head with the George Floyd situation. And, you know, you're having to explain and talk your student athletes through those things and having to deal with the emotions that come with it. Because like, we all feel a certain way about it, right? We all have a certain, you know, way we want to go about handling it, and who's to say what's right and what's wrong? But you know, we just got to be responsible with it, and you know, more than anything, listen to our players. And because although the George Floyd brought it to a head, there had always been little things here and there that our guys pick up on, that you know, and that we say it all the time. We don't give them enough credit for how smart they are and the little things and everything that they pick up. And you know, once that situation happened, we had a team meeting via Zoom because, you know, with COVID-19, everybody was home, and we just kind of let the guys talk. Mm-hmm. And they talked about how it felt, how they feel when they walk out of the door and they're going for a job. And they have to make sure they're wearing Marquette gear, and they're doing all these different little things, so they're not mistaken as something they're not doing. And by whether it's police or other people, and you know, as a coach, you're like, wow, like, you know, wow, because in athletics, you're in a bubble where a lot of times race doesn't come into part. Like, you're just playing hoops, you know, like. You know, you got black people, you got white people, you got Hispanics, you got all different races coming together, and you just compete and you're playing hoops. And sometimes in that bubble, you're not treated differently. But when you get outside of that bubble, outside of those lines, is when it happens. And it was heartbreaking to hear those stories, but it was great to let them get it off their chest and for us to hear how they feel. And now we can create some type of action and something moving forward to help them and to better suit them for that. So I would say right now is the toughest challenges that I've had as a coach. And look, I'm trying to educate myself every day on the history of the systematic oppression, on the history of slavery, of everything leading up to now. I'm trying to educate myself, so when I talk to my guys and I talk to our administration, that I know what I'm talking about, and I feel comfortable bringing it to them, and feel comfortable bringing solutions to the matter.
And I want to touch on that a little bit more in a few minutes, but you're back at Marquette as the associate, one of the associate head coaches under Steve Wojciechowski, former Duke point guard. How did that relationship happen?
Yeah, we competed with each other on the court, and Wojo, the thing I can appreciate about him, we battled 2 years together against each other. Really won, because my freshman year, again, I wasn't in the mix that much up until the tournament, and I always tell him, because he gets on me, yeah, we beat you guys. They beat us 4 times in that, they beat us 4 out of 5 times, but I tell them we beat you when it count in the tournament. You know what I mean? They were the #1 seed. But he's a great competitor. We didn't know each other great outside of the court. We would see each other on the road. I was at App State, he was at Duke. I knew Jeff because Jason Capel and I played together at Greensboro Day. His dad, Jeff Sr., he was the head coach at North Carolina A&T. Our families were, had a relationship. We were close. And, I would go over and work out with them over at A&T back when we were in high school. So I knew Jeff, and so there was a little familiarity there. But then, and then I worked for Jason at App State for 4 years. And we got fired from there. And Mark Phelps, who was director of basketball operations at NC State when I played, Coach Wojciechowski, Steve, he hired him at Marquette. And we were out, and, he was looking for director of basketball operations. Mark Phelps gave him my name. He was like, oh, yeah, I know Justin. And then Chris Carrawell, who's one of my best friends, not only in the business, but outside of the business, we were the same year. That's my guy. Yeah, he co-signed it. Yeah, that's my guy. Boom, boom, boom. And that's how that connection, that relationship happened.
Mm-hmm. Now, I want to get your thoughts on something. I'm a lifetime WolfPack, NC State WolfPack fan. And I remember, man, I remember the glory days, Jim Valvano, Rodney Monroe, Chris Corciani, Chucky Brown, when, NC State and Carolina was that rivalry. It wasn't Duke and Carolina, it was NC State and Carolina. That was the big rivalry in the ACC. What's happened to the program, man, at NC State? What's happened to the basketball program in your estimation?
Yeah, that's a tough question, because I haven't really been in the area, and I haven't really watched them enough to get a feel for the program and kind of what's happening, because you become so engulfed with where you're at, what you're doing. Yeah, I may see scores, but I couldn't tell you the last time I watched a whole game. But what I will say is, right now, under Coach Kevin Keats, I think they're in a good place, a really, really good place. I think Coach Keats is the right man for the job. I think his style of play, I think his charisma, I think how he's recruiting, he's doing it the right way, and he's building it to last, and I think it's headed in the right direction. I really do. I really do. And, like everything, it takes time. You're not going to get instant gratification right away, although that's what we would like. We would love to win a national championship next year. I think we have to be patient. But what I will say is they're doing it the right way right now. Coach Keats is a stand-up guy. He knows the game. and he connects with those guys. Like I see the interactions and the connection and how he talks with them, you know, and that right there is more important than the X's and the O's and all the other stuff. You know, that connection, that relationship that he has with his guys is what I think is gonna propel him. But I think it's in a good space. We just got to be patient, and we gotta go through the process, and we're gonna be in good shape.
Okay. A few more points that I want to touch on, man, and I'm gonna let you get out of here.
Okay.
With the current social climate, man, you know, there are a lot of things going on out here. You know, the COVID-19, you got the Black Lives Matter movement, HBCUs versus predominantly white institutions. What do you think about this whole thing with African-American athletes, you know, showing some love to HBCU? We just saw the young man just committed to Howard University. Do you think this will be sustainable?
You know what? I don't know. I think it will. I think it will. Because look, hey, at the end of the day, I'm a former player, right? I'm a former player. And I think in recruiting and through this process, from a player standpoint, you have to do what makes you happy. You have to do what makes you comfortable, not what makes your friends or your family, not what's going to get the most likes on Twitter and it's going to give you the most, but what makes you happy? Get to the core of that and figure it out. And, you know, for this young man to make that decision to go to Howard, hey man, I was more happy because he did what he wanted to do. He didn't follow the traditional path, and that's what he wanted to do. And that's great. That's great. I applaud him for that. Is it something that'll be sustainable? We'll see. You know, we'll see. I think it will be very big to see how his experience is, and I think it's going to be a great experience. I think he's gonna you know, be very productive. It's going to be really competitive for him. You know, I know those guys up at Hampton, the coaches, and actually worked with one of them before, Coach Thornton, Tyler Thornton. Look, those are some big time coaches up there. He's going to get coached. He's going to get work. You know, and so I think he's going to be fine. It's not going to, I don't think it changes his trajectory of where he ends up. If anything, I think it helps boost him. But to answer your question, is it sustainable? I think it is. I think it is sustainable. But, you know, I think these young men, at the end of the day, you got to do what's best for you. You got to do what makes you happy, you know, and then you can live with it, because you're the one that has to live in that dorm and show up to practice every day and eat them. You know, that's you. Everybody else can have an influence on what, or can say their 2 cents, but in the day, they don't have to go to wherever you're going. And so you got to do what makes you happy. And I'm rooting for this young man. I think it's a great story. And I'm rooting for him to be successful. I know he will, because he has, you know, Howard's a great university. He's got great coaches, and he's a big time player. And so it normally, when you have all of that, it works out.
Yeah. Now, everybody's been affected with, you know, with the George Floyd situation. Everybody, not just America, but the world. What do you tell your kids, man? Especially when they're old enough to drive and they get pulled by the cops, man. What do you tell your kids?
Yeah, you know, my son is 18 now, so he's been driving for a little over a year. And even before the George Floyd situation, you know, we had other instances to relate to and to talk them through it. And, you know, my wife, you know, kind of spearheaded the conversation. But, you know, we talked to him about being respectful. Like, at the end of the day, it's all about getting home. We want to make sure you make it home. And, you know, we talked to him about when you're driving, you have your license and registration and all that stuff out, so that you don't have to reach in the glove compartment to get it. Always showing your hands. Yes, sir, no, sir. You know, and being respectful, because, you know, at the end of the day, you don't want to do nothing to take the situation to another level, and you want to keep it calm. And so those are the main things we talk about. We have one of those trackers on him to you know, so we can kind of know where he is at all times, and all of that stuff. But that's pretty much it. I don't think it's anything out of the norm of what every other African American family is probably telling their kids when they go out and drive. But, you know, try to de-escalate the situation as much as you can, and be as respectful as you can. And hey, let's make sure we make it home.
Okay. Two more quick things, man. And this question right here, I don't know if you can answer it or not, but I'm going to ask you: should athletes in college be paid?
You know, I'm a former player, right? So I'm always pro player. I think there should be some type of compensation. And right now, what's going into effect, and I'm not exactly sure on when, is the name, image, and likeness. Ability to make money off your name, image, and likeness. And so these guys are able to profit off of who they are. And whether that's through, you remember back in the day, they had that NCAA basketball game on EA Sports.
Yeah.
So if they did that now, our guys will be able to get paid for it. I don't know if they bring that game back or not, but, you know, that's a way. You know, they can, you know, run camps. They can do different things. They can do they have marketing opportunities. The only restraints on it is you can't wear your university logos or your university name, and it can't be from boosters of the university. But everything else is kind of free game. And there may be a couple other little caveats to it. So the NCAA is trying to solve that part of the puzzle, to where guys can make money off their name, off their image, and off their likeness, and be able to profit from it. And so I think that's a step in the right direction of getting to where, you know, guys can make a little money. Now, how much money that is, we'll see. You know, we'll see. I think we can all speculate, but until we kind of have a test run and we go through it for a couple of years, and we kind of see what those profits look like, then we can kind of, you know, pass judgment on the whole program. But I do think it's a step in the right direction. I think it's going to bring about a lot of other things that we didn't really think about, because I think it also gives them access to agents now, and it's going to take them into a whole nother world. Now you're talking about a kid having you made, I don't know, $10,000. You got to figure out your taxes on that. You need a tax guy. You need, you know, you're making appearances. Now you got to have somebody managing your schedule to get to. So it's going to bring in a whole different, some different things that makes it challenging. But again, it's you know, it helps these kids grow up, and it puts them in a situation to make money, and I'm all for that.
All right, last thing, man. Will there be a college basketball season?
Man, that's tough, man. Everybody's asking that, and I'll be honest, we have no idea. You know, you just saw what the Ivy League did as far as canceling fall sports and basketball starting in January. You know, I saw where Coach Pitino came out and made the recommendation to the NCAA to start in January. You have those that say it won't be a season. You know, you just don't know. I think it's all right now. I think we're just in kind of a wait and see mode. You know, just kind of let's see what happens. Let's see if this vaccine is introduced at the end of the year or first of next year, and then just kind of go with it. So I'm hopeful that we'll have it, you know, and you know, like I lock into this TBT thing like every day right now, man. I'm like the biggest TBT fan. One, because, you know, we have a team from Marquette that I think is going to win it, and I know a lot of those guys. And we got a local DJO who's playing on that team from North Carolina, and he's a Marquette alum, and he's killing it right now. But you know, what they're doing and their protocol, I think is, you know, is showing that, hey, we can, you know, we can figure out a way to play. Now, getting people in the stands will be the other part of it. So, you know, with that, I'm hopeful that we do have a season. I really am.
Well, Coach Gainey, Justin Gainey, man, thank you for your time, man. Thank you for sharing your journey, man, from High Point, North Carolina to the many places that you've been basketball-wise, man. I wish you nothing but the best in your coaching journey, man, and hopefully we'll see you as a head coach, whether it's in college or the NBA level.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me, and really enjoyed it. And anytime, man, and you know, just, hey, stay in touch. And if you need anything this way, don't hesitate to give me a shout.
All right, there it is, Coach Justin Gainey, Sports Talk with Player Agent 3.